In this episode, we're looking at hunters who were mauled by dangerous predators, from a wildlife photographer's deadly first bow hunting season to a utility lineman's fatal encounter with an enraged bull moose. But first, we start in the unforgiving Arctic, where shifting crosswinds would mask the approach of nature's most formidable predator. It was February 14, 2016, when the unforgiving Arctic landscape of Resolute Bay, Nunavut, Canada, became the stage for a deadly encounter that would remind the world why polar bears are considered the Arctic's most formidable predator. The coastal pack ice stretched endlessly under a deceptively calm sky. This remote wilderness, where temperatures plummet well below freezing and survival depends on constant vigilance, was familiar territory for Dresden Keel. At 41 years old, Dresden was an experienced subsistence hunter who had spent years tracking seals and caribou across the frozen expanses of northern Canada. His sharp instincts and deep respect for the Arctic environment had sustained his family through countless winters in this harsh land. On this particular day, he was traveling alone by snowmobile to check his trap line near a remote ice formation along the floe edge, following animal tracks that promised a successful harvest before the weather turned. Radio contact with his settlement had been delayed by atmospheric interference, and the brief weather window meant he had to move fast. His rifle, carried with a round chambered and safety engaged as was standard practice in polar bear territory, would soon prove inadequate for the lightning-fast encounter ahead. The warning signs were everywhere for those who knew how to read them. Intersecting bear tracks crisscrossed the snow, telling the story of a large predator's recent passage. Crushed ice around old seal holes and the partially eaten remains of a seal nearby painted a clear picture of an active hunting ground. Fresh claw marks on nearby ice formations indicated recent feeding activity. The Arctic's apex predator was close, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would end in tragedy. Polar bears are the largest land carnivores on Earth, with adult males weighing up to 1,500 pounds and possessing the strength to crush a seal's skull with a single bite. Their incredible sense of smell can detect prey from over a mile away, and their ability to move silently across ice makes them nearly invisible until it's too late. These magnificent yet deadly creatures are capable of explosive bursts of speed that can reach 25 miles per hour across snow and ice. Their massive paws, equipped with razor-sharp claws up to 4 inches long, can deliver devastating blows that would instantly incapacitate most prey. Unlike other bear species, polar bears are true carnivores with no fear of humans, viewing them as potential food sources. Dresden's fatal mistake came when he dismounted his snowmobile and approached his trap line on foot, momentarily dividing his attention between the trap mechanism and the surrounding terrain. He had visually scanned the area and, seeing nothing but empty ice stretching to the horizon, assumed he had adequate distance from any threats. What he didn't know was that a massive adult polar bear, likely food-stressed and curious about the unfamiliar movement and sound of the snowmobile, had detected his presence from downwind and was moving to investigate. The bear approached with deliberate curiosity, using the natural undulations of pressure ridges not as calculated cover, but simply following the path of least resistance as it moved closer to assess this potential opportunity. The encounter turned violent with terrifying suddenness. The bear, determining that Dresden represented prey rather than threat, broke into a sudden charge across the hard-packed snow, its massive paws thundering against the ice as it covered ground with frightening speed. Dresden spun at the sound, bringing his rifle up and managing to disengage the safety, but the thick Arctic mitts and the sheer speed of the attack left him no time to acquire his target. The impact was devastating as nearly 1,000 pounds of muscle and fury slammed into him, knocking him onto his back with bone-crushing force that echoed across the frozen landscape. The bear's massive forepaws pinned Dresden's torso to the ice, its claws digging deep as it established complete dominance. The first bite targeted his head and shoulder, the bear's powerful jaws delivering crushing force to his skull and neck. The attack continued with relentless ferocity as the predator inflicted bite after bite, tearing at his upper body, face, and throat in a sustained mauling that lasted for a few terrible minutes. Blood stained the pristine white snow as the bear's teeth, measuring over 2 inches long, punctured through multiple layers of protective clothing and flesh, penetrating vital structures with each crushing bite. The massive trauma to his skull, the catastrophic damage to his neck and throat, and the resulting hemorrhaging proved rapidly fatal, though consciousness may have persisted through the initial moments of the assault. The bear had begun to feed, and was attempting to drag Dresden's body toward a nearby pressure ridge when the sound of an approaching snowmobile engine carried across the ice. Another hunter from the settlement, who had grown concerned about Dresden's extended absence and come to check on him. The bear, startled by the mechanical noise and detecting a second human presence, abandoned its kill and retreated across the floe edge, disappearing into the Arctic wilderness. The entire encounter demonstrated the deadly efficiency of an opportunistic polar bear attack, leaving behind a scene that would haunt investigators for years to come. The discovery of Dresden's remains sparked an immediate investigation by local authorities and wildlife officials. The remote location and harsh conditions complicated recovery efforts, but the evidence clearly pointed to a polar bear attack. The incident sent shockwaves through the tight-knit Arctic community, where such encounters serve as stark reminders of the constant dangers faced by those who hunt in polar bear territory. His family and fellow hunters mourned the loss of a man who had dedicated his life to providing for his community in one of Earth's most challenging environments. The tragedy prompted renewed discussions about safety protocols for hunters working in polar bear habitats. Dresden Kiel's tragic encounter with the Arctic's apex predator was a sobering reminder of nature's raw power, but his story was not the only one that year. For Lumina Trask, it wasn't the frozen wasteland of the Arctic that posed the threat, but the dense forests of Colorado, where a different kind of predator was about to turn a successful hunting trip into a nightmare. It was October 3, 2017, when the golden aspens of Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming painted a deceptively beautiful backdrop for a deadly encounter with one of North America's most formidable predators. The dense timber stretched across steep mountain slopes, where shadows danced between towering pines, and the crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and danger. Lumina Trask, a 34-year-old wildlife photography assistant, was experiencing her first bow hunting season in these mountains. Her careful nature had served her well in photography, but hunting presented new challenges. Despite her inexperience with predator behavior around fresh kills, she possessed the patience and attention to detail that made her excellent at her craft. On this fateful afternoon, she was hunting with a friend, though they had temporarily separated to glass opposing drainages for elk. The hunt had been successful beyond expectations. A magnificent bull elk had been harvested late in the afternoon within the dense timber. The forest told stories of recent animal activity: overturned logs with fresh claw marks, dark berry-filled scat, and multiple trees bearing distinctive scratches. The evidence painted a clear picture of active grizzly territory, but the excitement of a successful hunt overshadowed these critical warning signs. Grizzly bears are among North America's apex predators, with adult males weighing up to 800 pounds and possessing devastating strength. Their exceptional sense of smell can detect fresh blood and meat from miles away. These powerful omnivores are particularly dangerous during autumn, when they enter hyperphagia, a feeding frenzy to build fat reserves for winter. Fatal attacks, while uncommon, occur with greater frequency than other bear species, and the combination of hyperphagia, a fresh carcass, and a solitary human can create the perfect storm for a deadly encounter. Lumina's fatal mistake came when she began field dressing the massive elk alone, leaving exposed organs and blood without posting a lookout or maintaining awareness of her surroundings. The rich scent created an irresistible beacon for any predator within miles. A massive grizzly bear had been foraging in the area and detected the powerful scent trail, following it directly to the kill site. The bear's approach began with cautious investigation. Moving through the forest shadows with surprising stealth for such a massive creature, the animal circled the kill site from downhill cover. For several minutes, the grizzly observed from the timber's edge, its distinctive shoulder hump and broad head barely visible. The scent of fresh meat triggered powerful instincts tied to its desperate need to consume thousands of calories before winter. The bear huffed and shifted position, torn between its territorial aggression and the overwhelming drive to claim this unexpected bounty. The critical moment came when Lumina turned her back completely, her focus entirely absorbed by field dressing. The grizzly interpreted this as both opportunity and challenge. Without warning, the animal surged forward in a devastating charge. The initial impact knocked Lumina violently to the ground with bone-crushing force. The grizzly's powerful jaws immediately clamped onto her shoulder and upper arm, massive canine teeth puncturing through clothing and flesh with devastating pressure. The animal shook its head violently, designed to disable prey and assert complete dominance. Lumina's screams echoed through the timber as the bear's teeth found her face and scalp, tearing away tissue in savage bites. The grizzly's claws, each up to 4 inches long, raked across her torso and legs, leaving deep lacerations that severed blood vessels and damaged muscle tissue. Each swipe delivered incredible blunt force trauma, cracking ribs and causing massive internal bleeding. As Lumina attempted to crawl away, the grizzly returned to the attack repeatedly, biting at her arms, legs, and back in a display of the raw aggression these bears are known for. The forest floor became stained with blood as the assault progressed. The accumulation of injuries created a catastrophic medical crisis. Major blood vessels in her arms and legs had been severed, causing massive hemorrhaging. Blunt force trauma to her chest and abdomen had damaged internal organs, while shock began shutting down her body's vital systems. Without immediate medical intervention, survivability dropped to near zero within minutes. The combination of severe penetrating trauma, crushing injuries, massive blood loss, and physiological shock proved fatal as her body succumbed to the overwhelming damage. The grizzly maintained its aggressive behavior for several more minutes before finally retreating into the dense timber. When her hunting partner returned to their agreed meeting location, the horrific scene that awaited would haunt him forever. The discovery triggered an immediate response from Wyoming game and fish officials and local law enforcement. The remote location complicated the investigation, but physical evidence clearly indicated a grizzly bear attack. Wildlife officials launched an intensive search, ultimately locating and removing a large male grizzly bear from the area. Lumina's family and colleagues in the wildlife photography community mourned the loss of a talented and passionate individual who had dedicated her life to capturing nature's beauty. Her tragic death sparked renewed discussions about safety protocols for hunters working alone in grizzly country, particularly during the critical autumn feeding period. While Lumina Trask's encounter with a grizzly bear in Wyoming's wilderness demonstrated the deadly potential of North America's most powerful predators, her story was not isolated in the annals of hunting tragedies. For Bixley Gunt, it wasn't the dense forests of Wyoming that posed the threat, but the reed-choked floodplains of Romania, where an entirely different kind of tusked predator was about to prove that some of Europe's most dangerous animals still roam the ancient hunting grounds. It was November 19, 2015, when the misty Danube floodplains of southern Romania became the setting for a deadly encounter that would demonstrate why wild boar remain one of Europe's most feared and dangerous animals. The ancient wetlands stretched endlessly across the landscape, where dense reed beds bordered harvested farmland and morning fog clung to the waterlogged terrain. This primeval hunting ground had witnessed countless driven hunts over the centuries, where tradition and danger walked hand in hand through the marshes. Bixley Gunt, a 52-year-old agricultural equipment salesman from Bucharest, had participated in driven hunts across Romania for over 2 decades. His confident demeanor and extensive experience had earned him respect among local hunting circles, though his impatience with strict safety spacing rules often concerned his fellow hunters. On this cold November morning, he was positioned near the dense reeds that formed a natural barrier between the wetlands and the recently harvested cornfields, a strategic location where driven game would likely emerge. The morning hunt had been organized with military precision, as Romanian driven hunts traditionally demanded. Beaters moved methodically through the distant reed beds, their voices and the sound of sticks against vegetation designed to push wild boar toward the waiting line of hunters. Bixley's position offered excellent visibility across the open farmland, but the towering reeds behind him created a wall of golden stalks that could conceal even the largest animals until they were dangerously close. The warning signs were abundant for those experienced enough to recognize them. Fresh rooting scars marked the muddy ground where powerful snouts had torn through the earth in search of roots and grubs. Snapped reed stalks lay scattered across the area, broken by the passage of something large and powerful. The churned mud bore the distinctive hoofprints of a solitary boar, indicating an animal of considerable size moving through the area recently. Wild boar are among Europe's most formidable and unpredictable animals, with large adult males weighing between 300 and 500 pounds and armed with razor-sharp tusks that can grow up to 7 inches long. These ancient survivors possess incredible strength and compact muscularity, capable of charging at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour through terrain that would stop most other animals. Their tusks, constantly sharpened by grinding against each other, can slice through flesh and bone with devastating efficiency. Unlike domestic pigs, Wild boar retain all their primitive survival instincts, making them extremely dangerous when cornered or surprised. Bixley's fatal mistake came when he abandoned his assigned position and stepped into the thick reed cover to improve his shooting angle. The dense vegetation that had seemed like mere concealment was actually harboring a massive solitary boar that had broken away from the main group being driven by the beaters. The animal, already agitated by the sounds of the hunt and the presence of humans, was positioned directly in the path Bixley chose to take. The attack erupted with explosive violence as the boar burst from the reeds at point-blank range. The massive animal, weighing nearly 480 pounds, struck Bixley's legs with the force of a battering ram, its muscular shoulder and head driving into him with bone-crushing impact. The collision sent him crashing to the muddy ground, his rifle flying from his grasp as he hit the waterlogged earth with devastating force. The boar's tusks tore into Bixley's thigh and groin area in the violent chaos of the attack. The razor-sharp ivory slashed through flesh and muscle in wild, uncontrolled arcs as the panicked animal thrashed and gouged. Blood immediately began pouring from the ragged wounds as the tusks ripped through tissue, tearing open major blood vessels in the brutal melee. In its panic to escape, the boar trampled over Bixley as it fled, its sharp hooves striking his chest and abdomen. The animal's weight, concentrated into relatively small hoofprints, created crushing injuries that compounded the devastating tusk wounds. The combination of penetrating trauma from the tusks and the trampling injuries during escape created a catastrophic pattern of damage. The massive hemorrhaging from the torn vessels in his leg and groin proved fatal within minutes. The boar's tusks had ripped through the femoral artery, and the resulting blood loss was too severe for survival in such a remote location. The animal fled into the distance, crashing through the reeds toward the deeper marshland. The other hunters heard the commotion and rushed to investigate, but the damage had already been done. The entire encounter lasted for a few minutes, yet it demonstrated the lethal efficiency of one of Europe's most dangerous game animals. Romanian authorities launched an immediate investigation into the incident, focusing on whether proper safety protocols had been followed during the driven hunt. The incident sent shockwaves through Romania's hunting community, where wild boar attacks, while rare, are always feared due to the animal's unpredictable nature and devastating weaponry. Bixley's family and fellow hunters mourned the loss of an experienced sportsman who had dedicated decades to the traditional hunting practices of his homeland. His death served as a stark reminder that even the most experienced hunters can fall victim to the split-second decisions that separate life and death in the wilderness. While Bixley Gunt's encounter with a wild boar in Romania's ancient wetlands highlighted the deadly potential of Europe's most dangerous game animal, his story joined a growing list of hunting tragedies that year. For Tabby Phipp, it wasn't the reed-choked marshes of Romania that posed the threat, but the dense forests of central India, where one of the world's most elusive and deadly cats was about to demonstrate why leopards remain the ultimate ambush predators. It was June 7, 2018, when the dense Satpura buffer forest of Madhya Pradesh, India, became the stage for a deadly encounter that would demonstrate why leopards are considered one of the world's most efficient and deadly ambush predators. The ancient woodland stretched across rolling hills, where towering sal trees created a canopy so thick that sunlight barely penetrated to the forest floor. This pristine wilderness, bordering one of India's most famous tiger reserves, was home to an incredible diversity of wildlife. Tabby Phipp, a 29-year-old wildlife photographer from South Africa, had traveled to India to document the region's elusive leopards and other predators. His aggressive pursuit of rare wildlife photographs had taken him across 3 continents, though he was completely unfamiliar with the behavior patterns of India's apex predators. On this humid evening, he was positioned near a natural game trail junction, close to a mineral-rich salt lick that attracted numerous species. The location had been carefully chosen by his local guide, who understood that the convergence of multiple animal trails near the salt lick created an ideal vantage point for wildlife photography. However, the guide had separated from Tabby earlier in the afternoon to scout alternative positions before the critical evening hours when most predators became active. The forest around the salt lick showed abundant signs of recent animal activity, with fresh tracks pressed into the muddy ground. The warning signs were unmistakable for those who understood the language of the forest. Repeated alarm calls from langur monkeys echoed through the canopy above, their sharp barks indicating the presence of a large predator in the immediate vicinity. The calls had been continuous for nearly an hour, growing more intense and frequent as darkness approached. Fresh scratch marks on nearby trees painted a clear picture of danger lurking in the shadows. Leopards are among the most adaptable and deadly big cats on Earth, with adult males weighing up to 200 pounds and possessing the perfect combination of stealth, strength, and killing efficiency. These solitary hunters are masters of camouflage, their rosette-patterned coats providing perfect concealment in dappled forest light. Unlike lions or tigers, leopards are exceptional climbers and can approach prey from virtually any angle. Their powerful jaws deliver killing bites with surgical precision, targeting the throat to suffocate prey or crushing the neck vertebrae to dispatch victims quickly and efficiently. Tabby's fatal mistake came when he remained at ground level after dusk, without the protection of an elevated Mashan or constant vigilance. The approaching darkness that made wildlife more active also provided perfect cover for a leopard's hunting strategy. A large male leopard had been tracking the scent trails around the salt lick and had detected his presence from a considerable distance. Using the tall grass and scattered boulders as cover, the cat began its methodical approach. The attack materialized from the darkness with the silent efficiency that has made leopards legendary among big cat species. The leopard approached through the tall grass from directly behind Tabby's position, moving with the fluid grace that allows these cats to hunt successfully in the most challenging terrain. The animal's padded paws made no sound on the forest floor as it closed the final distance. The leopard's assault began with a powerful leap that covered the final yards in a single bound. The cat's massive paws struck Tabby's shoulders, driving him forward and down with tremendous force. Before he could react or cry out, the leopard's jaws clamped down on his throat with devastating power. The cat's canine teeth, measuring over 2 inches in length, punctured deep into the neck, crushing the windpipe and severing major blood vessels. The bite was delivered with the calculated efficiency of a predator that has evolved to kill quickly and silently. The leopard's powerful jaw muscles compressed with devastating force, the bite crushing vital structures in the neck and throat region while cutting off the airway completely. The attack caused rapid blood loss and asphyxiation, preventing any meaningful resistance. Tabby struggled briefly against the overwhelming force, but the oxygen deprivation quickly brought unconsciousness. Within seconds of the initial attack, Tabby's body went limp as the leopard maintained its suffocating grip on his throat. The cat's instinctive killing technique ensured that the victim was incapacitated within moments. The leopard then began dragging the body toward dense cover, demonstrating the incredible strength that allows these cats to haul prey twice their own weight. The leopard pulled its victim approximately 50 yards into a dense thicket of thorny bushes, where it began feeding on the upper torso and neck area. After feeding for a brief period, the leopard abandoned the remains and melted back into the forest shadows, disappearing as silently as it had appeared. The discovery of Tabby's remains the following morning triggered an immediate response from local wildlife authorities and police. The remote location and dense forest terrain complicated the investigation, but the evidence clearly indicated a leopard attack. Forest officials launched an intensive search for the responsible animal, though the vast territory made capture extremely difficult. The incident sent shockwaves through India's wildlife photography community, where such attacks on humans are extremely rare but always feared. Tabby's family and colleagues mourned the loss of an experienced photographer who had pursued dangerous wildlife encounters across multiple continents. While Tabby Phipps's encounter with a leopard in India showed nature's deadly efficiency, his story wasn't that year's final tragedy. For Vorstrand, the threat came not from a stealthy cat, but from the raw power of Alaska's largest land animal, where autumn mating season would turn a routine tracking job into a deadly confrontation with over 1,000 pounds of aggression. It was September 22, 2015, when the vast wilderness of the Talkeetna foothills in Alaska became the setting for a deadly encounter that would demonstrate why bull moose during rutting season are considered one of North America's most dangerous animals. The rolling terrain stretched endlessly under the crisp autumn sky, where dense willow thickets created natural corridors that funneled wildlife movement through the landscape. This remote region, known for its abundant moose population and challenging hunting conditions, had provided subsistence opportunities for Alaskan families for generations. Vorstrand, a 47-year-old utility lineman from Anchorage, had spent his entire life hunting these unforgiving landscapes to provide meat for his family. His decisive nature and decades of experience tracking wounded game had made him a respected hunter among his peers. though his confidence sometimes led him to take risks that others would avoid. On this particular afternoon, he was following the blood trail of a bull moose he had wounded earlier during the peak of rutting season, when testosterone-fueled aggression makes these massive animals extremely unpredictable. The tracking had led Vorse deep into a maze of dense willow thickets that limited visibility to mere yards in any direction. The thick vegetation created natural tunnels through the landscape, forcing both hunter and prey to follow predetermined paths where encounters could happen with little warning. His family members were spread across the area, working together to recover the wounded animal before darkness fell. The warning signs were everywhere for those experienced enough to recognize them. Broken brush marked the passage of something massive moving through the willows with increasing desperation. Deep grunts and heavy breathing sounds echoed from somewhere ahead, indicating a large animal in distress. The blood trail was becoming more erratic, suggesting the wounded bull was becoming increasingly agitated and unpredictable. Moose are the largest members of the deer family, with mature Alaskan bulls weighing up to 1,500 pounds and standing over 6 feet tall at the shoulder. During rutting season, these normally docile giants transform into aggressive powerhouses, driven by hormonal surges that eliminate their natural fear of humans. Their massive antlers, spanning up to 6 feet across, serve as formidable weapons capable of delivering devastating blows. However, it is their hooves that pose the greatest threat. Hard-edged and backed by tremendous leg strength, they can deliver crushing strikes with the force of sledgehammers. Vorse's fatal mistake came when he advanced into the thick willow cover while pursuing the wounded bull, entering terrain where the massive animal held every advantage. The dense vegetation that provided concealment for his approach also eliminated any possibility of retreat once the encounter began. The wounded bull had taken refuge in the heart of the thicket, where its dark coat blended perfectly with the shadows. The attack erupted with explosive violence as the bull charged from concealment at extremely close range. The massive animal burst through the willow screen like a freight train, its enormous bulk crashing through vegetation with explosive short-range acceleration. The bull's head was lowered in an aggressive posture, its massive antlers leading the charge as over 1,000 pounds of enraged muscle bore down on the hunter. The initial impact was devastating as the bull's broad chest and shoulder struck Vorse with bone-crushing force, launching him backward through the air before he crashed to the ground. The collision knocked the wind from his lungs and sent his rifle flying into the dense brush, leaving him completely defenseless. The enraged bull immediately began stomping with methodical brutality, its massive hooves striking with the precision of a jackhammer. Each hoof, measuring nearly 6 inches across with naturally hardened edges, delivered crushing blows that shattered bone and pulverized tissue. The strikes targeted Vorse's chest, the tremendous weight and force collapsing his ribcage and crushing the organs beneath. The bull's front hooves struck repeatedly in rapid succession, each blow driven by powerful leg muscles. The impacts created a devastating pattern of trauma across the victim's torso, with multiple ribs fracturing and splintering under the tremendous force. The crushing pressure ruptured major blood vessels and tore through vital organs, causing massive internal hemorrhaging. Additional strikes targeted the head and neck region, where the concentrated force of the bull's weight caused catastrophic skull fractures and severe brain trauma. The combination of crushing injuries to the chest and head created catastrophic damage throughout his body. Blood rapidly filled his chest cavity from ruptured vessels, while traumatic brain injuries disrupted all vital functions. Vorse lost consciousness within seconds as his brain was deprived of oxygen from the massive blood loss and direct trauma. He succumbed to his injuries within minutes as internal bleeding and the cumulative effects of the brutal assault overwhelmed his body's ability to sustain life. The attack continued for several more devastating seconds before the bull's rage finally subsided and the animal withdrew deeper into the willow thicket. Troopers and wildlife officials launched an immediate investigation into the incident, though the remote location and challenging terrain complicated their efforts. The attack highlighted the extreme dangers faced by hunters pursuing wounded moose during rutting season, when these normally docile animals become unpredictable killing machines. Vorse's family and fellow utility workers mourned the loss of a dedicated provider who had spent his life working in some of Alaska's most challenging conditions. His death served as a stark reminder that even the most experienced hunters can fall victim to the split-second decisions that separate life and death in the wilderness. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.